Hello, everyone. My book of choice is George, and I'll be talking about how George is just like the movie Frozen. Now, I know it might seem like a stretch, but give me 5 minutes and I'll have you believing me too. I'll start off by comparing George and how she is just like Elsa. Now, George starts off the story by hiding herself and not telling anyone about how she feels, even hiding it from her best friend Kelly, her mom, her brother. She then slowly, throughout the story, comes to terms with herself, becoming more comfortable with showing who she really is through the help of her best friend, Kelly, who encouraged her to be true to herself. This matches really well with how Elsa in Frozen followed a very similar path. Elsa starting her story by hiding herself away and not talking to much of anyone, and repeatedly telling herself, conceal, don't feel, don't let them know, which is very reminiscent of how George felt in the beginning, and by the end comes to a very similar conclusion that George did, and tells the world about herself, not being afraid to be true anymore, all thanks to the love from her sister, Anna. Speaking of Anna, she very closely resembles Kelly in an almost sidekick role by always being there for Elsa, even when she ran away from Anna and the rest of the kingdom to hide herself away so she could be her true self. This is very similar to how George would only ever show her real self when she was completely alone. Kelly is also the catalyst that allows George to finally show everyone who she is. This is mirrored in Frozen because Anna is also the catalyst that allows Elsa to come to terms with herself and her power that lets her be with everyone again at the end. Now, this is where it really fits. The teacher from George, Mrs. Udell, can be easily compared to the villain of Frozen, Hans. For starters, she in the beginning seems all about how George is connected to her emotions and always jumps to her side if the other kids are picking on her. But then, when she goes to try out, is shot down asking, was that supposed to be some kind of joke? Because it wasn't very funny, almost belittling her attempt at auditioning for Charlotte. Now Hans does something very similar in Frozen. He shows up claiming to have fallen in love with Anna, and the promise of a happy romantic story is dangled in our face. And when one of the main characters is at their most vulnerable, just like George trying out for Charlotte and Mrs. Udell shuts her down, Hans reveals that he too was never really on their side and fulfills his part as the villain. Even the climax of the book and the movie are similar for them. Hans goes to strike down Elsa in one final attempt to upheave the royal regime and is stopped by someone who believes in Elsa. Just like in George, after Kelly and George have planned to switch places before anyone could notice, and they're talking in the wings about how great of a job she did, wouldn't you know, the main villain, Mrs. Udell, comes strutting towards them in one final attempt to topple their plan, and is stopped by the principal, Maladano, who is able to quickly assess the scene and make things right. But fast forward to the end of the story, when George is going to meet Kelly's uncle Bill to go to the zoo. The uncle could be compared to Olaf from Frozen. They both only know the main characters for who they truly are. Olaf with Elsa and all her magical abilities, and Kelly's uncle Bill with George, or as he knows her, Melissa. This has been George compared to Frozen. Thank you.